Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Mancuso, and I serve as the Communications and Outreach Senior Specialist for the Summer Health Professions Education Program, also known as SHPEP. For those of you who are unaware, SHPEP is a free 6-week summer enrichment program for college freshmen and sophomore students who are interested in the health professions, and our application is now open. Please visit shpep.org to learn more and apply. Tonight's webinar will provide tips for you to consider when crafting your personal statement and will be led by Liliana Bronner from our University of Nebraska Medical Center program site. Please be sure to use the Q&A feature to ask any questions throughout tonight's session. And as always, SHPEP webinars are posted on our YouTube channel within a week of the live viewing. Liliana, feel free to take it away.
Hi, and good evening or good afternoon to all of you. And Tony, thank you very much. And thank you to everyone that was involved in coordinating this particular series. Also, thanks for inviting me to speak to all of these participants from all over the country. I heard about 170 something people were registered. So it's an absolute honor to spend time with everyone today. I'm Liliana Bronner. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Family Medicine Primary Care Center, and I manage several grant-funded clinical education programs here at UNMC. My time is split among several different projects across our campus and our College of Medicine that focus on interprofessional education activities and health profession pathway programs. So I currently serve as the director of the medical pathway programs in our College of Medicine. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to go through some of these topics. Here's a little outline of what we're going to cover tonight. First, we're going to talk about what a personal statement is. I'm going to define it a little bit for you, and I'm going to tell you what it isn't as well. We're going to talk about different ways that you should go about planning and what to ask yourself before you write. You know, that brainstorming process is really important when you're writing a personal statement. Thirdly, we're going to talk about, the writing time and give you some general advice about what to include. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to strengthen, revise, and polish your personal statement. So let's get started here with what a personal statement is. Well, a personal statement, and sometimes it's called a statement of purpose. So you might see both of these terms, but SHPEP program calls it a personal statement. And it's often part of required application materials for colleges, graduate schools, scholarship programs, research internships, and of course, summer experience programs, just like SHPEP. This document is read by selection committees at the 12 different SHPEP sites to determine your fit for the program. So this is an opportunity for you as the applicant to demonstrate how your personal qualities are compatible with the expectations of each sub-program to which you're applying, whether it be dentistry or medicine, nursing, pharmacy, PT, public health, or optometry. It's also a way to determine your compatibility. So SHPEP asks you to respond to specific question prompts or cover specific topics mentioned in the guidelines. So because the personal statement accompanies other materials such as the application forms and transcripts, maybe references that you have, the personal statement should complement and not just repeat the information that's already contained in all of your other documents. So what it is, there's some things that a personal statement definitely is. A personal statement is a picture. It's a picture of your past, present, and future. It's your personal essay that should produce this picture of you as a person, as a student, as a potential SHPEP participant, all of your past, not all of them, but, some select past experience or two, and how those have shaped who you are today and how that has influenced who you want to become, a future healthcare professional, right? That's what you all want to be. A personal statement is also an invitation. It's an invitation for the reader. So the reader has to be invited to get to know you personally. So bridge that assumed distance of strangers and make your reader welcome with your personal statement. A personal statement is also an indication of your priorities and your judgment. So what you choose to say in your statement tells the selection committees at all of these different sites exactly what your priorities are. You know, what you say in your personal statement and how you say it, it's pretty crucial. A personal statement is the story. It's your story. And everyone has a story to tell, but we're not all these natural storytellers. But if you are like most people and your life lacks, inherent drama, it might take a little serious self-reflection. Conversation with friends, family, and mentors might come in handy so that they can pinpoint what story about you and what types of things you should write. A personal statement is also your opportunity to convey what you might be like as a participant in this program. This is your chance to articulate the passion that will make you a motivated SHPEP scholar, as well as your familiarity with your field of interest and your potential research interest, specifically those things dealing with reducing health disparities, advancing diversity, improving healthcare for everybody. And I found this really nice little quote here that said that an interesting, well-written, and polished personal statement represents the confident, intelligent, and grounded professional that you are going to become. So all of these selection committees are looking for all of these things, right? So what a personal statement isn't. Let's talk about this briefly. A personal statement is definitely not an academic paper with you as the subject. The papers that you write for class are typically designed to interpret data or reflect research, analyze events or readings that you've done, all at some distance. We're typically taught to eliminate the I form from academic writing, but in a personal statement, your goal is to close that distance between you and the reader. You have to engage them on a different, more personal level than you have been trained in college. So make sure to use that word I. The word I is okay, but a personal statement is definitely not an academic paper with you as the subject. It's not an essay that reads like a resume of accomplishments and goals and tells the reader absolutely nothing that they couldn't glean from just reading your application. This approach reveals really little bit about you and as the candidate, and it's just a wasted opportunity, right? If they can just read your application and get the same information, it's really a lost opportunity. You have to tell them more. A personal statement is also not a journal entry. And while some of you might draw on experiences or observations that you might have captured in a personal journal, your essay should not read like your diary. It should only share its relevance, using those experiences that you have had to give context for your story and what you're trying to tell. So only include what you're comfortable sharing in your personal statement. A personal statement is also not a plea or a justification for getting into the program. This is not an invitation like to make your case or like defending an assertion that you're more deserving of being in this program than other candidates. That's a wasted effort, and you've most likely accomplished the opposite by doing that. You have to talk about yourself and what's so special about you, right? But most importantly, a personal statement, one of the things that it is, and it should be, is authentic. Don't make the mistake of trying to guess what the committee is looking for, and don't write what you think that they might want to hear. They want to know you and your authentic self. So don't make up something, just tell the story of you. So that's what we're going to cover a little bit today. What types of things should you be asking yourself before you write? The planning process is really important. But before we go any further, I think it's important to look at this screenshot of the personal statement guidelines for the SHPEP application. The first step to beginning to write a personal statement of any kind is looking at the guidelines and preparing for what these guidelines are telling you. The guidelines state that your personal statement is an opportunity to share why you're interested in pursuing a health professions career and what makes you an ideal SHPEP scholar. It says to include any economic, cultural, and/or social experiences that you've had, obstacles that you've overcome, and/or community service that has shaped your interests in a particular health profession. There's 5 different life experiences and ideas that the guidelines are prompting you to think about on here. And I've highlighted them right here. One of the first points to consider here is, how has your personal background, interests, and experiences influenced your decision to pursue a career in healthcare? This asks that you focus on your past and on your future. In this case, you'd want to relate these to each other, if you decide to talk about this. What do you want program sites to know about you that has not been disclosed in another part of the application? Some examples could include your interests and/or experiences in reducing healthcare disparities, advancing diversity, and improving healthcare for all. This second prompt here that you see asks you to focus on present day by relating something to the person that you are today. Who are you now? So the available space for your personal statement is 600 words, and it's approximately about 1 full page. Now, there's a special note here, and it says that if you're applying to multiple health professions pathways, for example, medicine at Iowa, dental at Columbia, optometry at Western, you have to ensure that the personal statement addresses your interests in each of the health professions pathways which you apply. So keep that in mind. So now that we've read the guidelines and now we know what's being requested, what's next is clarifying your motivations and goals for participating in SHPEP. You have to keep in mind that SHPEP gives you career development for a specific profession. So why do you want to join that profession? The language and the prompts that were given to you in the guideline help you see what to highlight in your essay. So the reviewers often want to see how you've prepared for this opportunity, what you're going to contribute to the SHPEP program, and how the program is going to help you achieve your future goals. So don't overlook this planning and brainstorming step. A lot of students, they think that they can finish faster if they just skip this planning stage and just start writing. But the truth is that good brainstorming and spending that time really jotting down things and outlining things will actually save you time down the line. When you brainstorm effectively, you'll be able to come up with things that you could write from each of the prompts. And the process will put you in the best position to start writing a really great essay, which is much better than starting to write an essay only to realize that it's not going to work and then you have to start all over again. So the goals for writing your personal statement is to demonstrate that passion, right, for the healthcare field, what thrills or excites you about the profession that you would like to do. Health professions training is extremely challenging, both intellectually, emotionally. So conveying that you have the energy and the perseverance to succeed through examples of challenges that you've faced and how you've overcome them is really important. Most importantly, you should be following the guidelines and stay within the word limit of 600 words. One last thing is to be sure to include something about how your interests or experiences have helped either reduce healthcare disparities or advance diversity in some way. So let's consider these 4 prompts. So let's take out some paper a pen, if you have a computer by you, something, let's start jotting some of these things down. So as ideas come to mind, make sure to write them down as we go through these prompts, right? So why a health career? That's one of the prompts that were given to you in the guidelines. Here you're looking towards the future, right? So your future goals tend to be based on what you'd like to study, but can also include long-term career goals. So it's important to show determination, vision, ambition, and these kinds of personal statements or paragraphs that you write in this particular area. For this kind of question, it could be helpful to think about things like what you'd like to do professionally. What health careers are you considering, or health career? Why you'd like to do it. What kinds of things do you need to learn in order to get to where you want to go? How will the things that that you need to learn through SHPEP help you get there? How can SHPEP help you learn what you need to learn so that you can achieve that final goal of becoming whatever healthcare profession you want to do? The next prompt that we see here is a good candidate. So the guidelines say, why would you be like a candidate for SHPEP? Tell us, So this category requires the biggest amount of brainstorming. This prompt wants to know about your background, your identity, interests, accomplishments, how you are, who you are today. So some ideas for brainstorming this that can help you figure that out are thinking about, when you became aware of an important identity for you, whether it's good or bad. Maybe your first job, perhaps some volunteer experiences that you've had, a class that motivated you or inspired you in some sort of way, maybe a hobby, a memorable victory or failure that you had, a leadership position that you might have taken on, a family member, a teacher, a celebrity, perhaps, that impacted you in some sort of way, a personal goal you achieved, a quality in yourself that you might be proud of, a unique talent that you have. The goal here is to talk about you and why you are who you are today, and how some of these things might have helped you become who you are today. Third, we see this idea of experiences, past experiences in overcoming adversity. So here we're looking to the past. We're thinking of problems that you may have encountered in your life. Once you have a problem or two that you think about and how you overcame it, just write those down. If you aren't happy with how you overcame it, then you can focus on what you learned from that experience. So here are some ideas that might help you identify problems that you can probably write about. Maybe a loss of a family member or a close friend, an injury or a health problem, whether it's physical or mental. How about a difficult relationship with a family member, a friend, or possibly a partner? Maybe situations about moving to a new city or state, or changing schools and how that impacted you. Maybe issues with acceptance, bullying, addiction, body image, anything similar to that. But here you're looking towards your past, your past experiences and how you overcame any challenges. And fourth, here we see diversity. So we all know that the world is becoming way more polarized than we've ever seen it. And for this reason, programs like SHPEP want to know how you handle those differences. How do you want to advance diversity and any experiences in reducing health disparities? So for this prompt, it could probably be helpful to think about maybe, thoughts or beliefs about something that you might have that are not mainstream. Are you, or do you know, or have you experienced anything around, people or communities that are very different from you in some way? You can give examples of ways that you could be different. And those could include things like, your religion or ethnicity, your skin color, your nationality, your social class, country and state, maybe city of origin that you're from, sexual or gender identification might be another one, if you're open to writing about that. So here are some prompts, that you can think of. So I'm going to give you a minute here to think about those unique experiences that you have and what you have to share. It's really important to spend some time thinking about the story that you can write about that is going to set you apart from other applicants. Now, the story doesn't have to be exotic or anything surprising, but it has to leave reviewers with a very specific impression as the author, of your personal statement. What you'll bring, specific qualities, unique experiences, and a desire to improve and learn more about your health profession by participating in SHPEP. What are these unique experiences? Conveying those specific aspects that set you apart from other applicants is really important. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. Okay, I hope you've written down maybe some experiences that you might want to write about. So now we'll go into the writing time, and you're drafting your personal statement, what types of things to avoid and what types of things to focus on for a winning statement. So let's talk about some of these. Important in each of your paragraphs is going to be your opening sentences, right? These are pretty crucial. And they're critical in capturing the reader's curiosity and their attention. So your introduction should entice the readers to read on. Telling a brief story with clear, coherent, and distinctive themes. For example, you can relate particular experiences, right? Like we talked about, explaining how they contributed to your sense of social commitment, for example. Talk about what you've learned about yourself, your strengths, your limitations from a particular experience that has made you now a better person, more mature, more self-confident, better suited for your chosen career path. Or maybe demonstrate your tenacity by discussing one or two situations in which you succeeded in the absolute face of adversity. So let's explore the opening line for a paragraph. So here, you're going to want to talk about how you became interested in pursuing a healthcare profession and your sense of social commitment. We're going to look at these two opening lines here. So let's consider these. So on the left, we have line 1, and it says, I always wanted to be a, and you can insert here if you want to be a doctor, dentist, whatever you want it to be there. Then in line 2 on the right-hand side, it says, during my recent internship at XYZ Children's Hospital. Take a look at these two different statements. These are two different opening lines. And these are examples of very frequently seen lines in personal statements. And this is why I put them up here, because they're extremely common. Now, both of these might truthfully desire a person who wants to go, let's just say, medical school, to fit that in. So both describe a person that wants to go into medical school and has wanted to be, let's say, a doctor for as long as they can remember. Also both highlight an actual desire to want to pursue a healthcare profession. But the second option on the right provides more concrete details that are going to separate one applicant from others and leave readers with a specific impression. Think about how many people want to go and pursue a career in a health profession that probably grew up wanting to be doctors or nurses or dentists or physical therapists, pharmacists, etc. If you start your statement with a narrative about how you told your mom that you wanted to be such and such since you were 3 years old, you're going to be just like everybody else who always wanted to be a healthcare professional. However, if you started with a narrative about an internship, for example, that you had that shaped your perspective on your particular chosen health profession, the disparities that you saw that existed, you would offer more concrete details that would distinguish you from other applicants and show your commitment and your knowledge about the field that you want to enter. Now, the review and selection committee at each SHPEP site, they're going to read hundreds, maybe thousands of these personal statements and applications. So you need to pull them in with your opening lines of each of your paragraphs. So that's an important thing. Think about your opening line. What types of things to avoid? Things to avoid are things like cliche statements like, I've always wanted to help people. I've always loved reading and doing community service, etc. Both of those are overused. They're not interesting. Using vague cliched phrases to explain your interest in a field really undermines the seriousness and professionalism of your application and wanting to get into this program. So instead, I would recommend that you try to provide a specific anecdote that illustrates what sparked and still sustains your passion. I just showed you an example before, in the slide before. Personal statements can have moments of humor that reflect on your character and personality, but the primary purpose isn't to show how clever you are in composing the essay. So try to avoid humor. The purpose of this personal statement is to present yourself as interesting and potentially inspiring future and aspiring future participants in SHPEP. For example, writing a humorous piece about how you might want to study psychology because you were inspired by watching The Sopranos might be acceptable for an undergraduate college admissions personal statement, but it's not really useful for this type of application. So instead, I would recommend that you focus on authentic experiences that allow reviewers to get to know you better and why you want to pursue your profession. Don't list your accomplishments. This is what the rest of the application is for. Instead, try to focus on just one or two experiences that illustrate those qualities and interests that are going to make you a good potential SHPEP scholar. So when drafting a personal statement, it helps to use prompts to help your writing, similar to what I've done. Ask yourself, some of these questions. Definitely start with questions included in the guidelines. Some other helpful prompts might include questions like, what event or experience inspired your decision to seriously pursue studies in healthcare? What research, scholarship, or life experience in the last few years reflects your future career interests? How does it reflect in your knowledge, skills, and passion about the field? What experience illustrates your ability to meet the rigors and challenges of the SHPEP program and a future as a healthcare professional? Now, it's really important to think of these prompts and start rephrasing some of these things. They're going to help you draft some of that personal statement and really getting your thoughts out. So general suggestions for organization is to begin with a story, like we've been talking about. Use that first paragraph of your 600 words to tell a narrative that illustrates maybe your story about you, right? Let's start with that. I'm going to give you a little outline here of how to do that. So use then the middle section of your essay to focus on how your past experiences created a passion and personal commitment to a career in healthcare. And then you could conclude with why this created the person you are today and what makes you an ideal SHPEP candidate. Talk about your unique characteristics and talents, and how they'll bring you to the program. How do you get along with others and that are maybe different than you, right? Maybe describing how all of this will address diversity and reduce healthcare disparities. And maybe if you're from a small town or a very homogeneous population setting, maybe how could an experience like this, like being an SHPEP, give you exposure to diversity? If you have no idea how to address that, that might be a way that you could do that. What you're trying to do here is create for the reviewers a visual. You want them to visualize your past, your present, and future, and see the relationship among all of those things and how all of these experiences shape who you are, who you were, and what you want to be and what you want to do. This is what we're getting at. You see a little theme here? Past, present, future. Those are key. Now we're going to talk about how to strengthen, how to revise, and how to polish your statement, how to finish it up. So how can you strengthen your personal statement? So once you've drafted that personal statement, you can strengthen it by highlighting specific experiences. We've talked about that. Developing those examples in order to show and not just to tell. And we'll go a little bit about, timeline and what that means. So you want to show and not just tell. And you want to organize your content for readability. So most strong personal statements that I've seen will be selective and develop particular examples that the committee can remember rather than give just this general overview. Of course, you can mention a few experiences in an opening sentence, but you should highlight or further develop one or two particular examples in the rest of your paragraphs. In addition to selecting specific experiences to highlight, you might want to show your qualities and your compatibility rather than just tell the readers about them. Now, for example, you could tell a committee that you have research experience. I've worked on several research projects, X, Y, and Z. Or you could show the committee your research experience with a statement like, while working in Professor Smith's lab, for example, I developed a statistical model that simulated the spread of 3 different airborne diseases among the general population. Take a look at these 2 statements. Do you see how that second example is more specific? We can see the details and imagine the researcher doing the statistical modeling. This example also highlights the knowledge base that the applicant has. Not only does this applicant have the knowledge of statistical modeling, but they also have a working knowledge of how diseases might spread and specific knowledge of like airborne diseases. The second example shows the applicant's research experience without ever mentioning like research at all. So after you highlight specific examples and develop those examples in order to show and not just tell, you'll want to be sure that you organize for readability. Do you know what helps make your points clear? It's typically organizing them. Oftentimes, organizational patterns for personal statements are going to involve a combination of what I've mentioned before. Your past, which is like your preparation or your qualifications. Your present, which is your compatibility with the program, who you are now. And then your future, all of your long-term goals. What does that look like? So in order to review a few options for organizing your past, present, and future in your personal statement, we're going to go ahead and take a look at 3 sample organizational patterns. For instance, you might start with your future and then move to the past and then to the present, right? So future, past, present. In this particular case, you could begin with like a paragraph about your future career goals. And then you might want to relate these future goals to your past experiences so that you could discuss the first time maybe you learned about this career or how you're preparing for that career, both academic and practically. Then you can highlight specific ways that this particular program are going to help you accomplish your goals. This discussion of the program is what is considered the present. So even though you might not be part of SHPEP yet, you might want to discuss it as if you were part of the community and what would you contribute by your participation. So another option would be maybe let's start with the present and move to the past and then to the future. So chronologically, like present, well, no, that would be present, past, and then future. So if you start with the present, you could probably explain the reason for applying and describe why you're applying. Then you could explain the experiences that you have that have prepared you for this program. And then you could end the statement with a discussion of the ways that the program will help you achieve your future goals. Now, the third organizational pattern is the chronological one. So would be past, present, future. Past, present, future. So in that particular case, you're going to want to begin with your past experiences, then describe your present and your preparation now. And then you could end with a statement, a discussion of your future goals and showing how this program is going to help you achieve those goals. So these aren't the only ways to organize a personal statement, but I hope that by giving you examples of how you can organize the statement, it could start sparking some ideas about how you might outline it, or how you might lay it out, and about how to go about highlighting the ways that your past, present, and your future align with your participation in SHPEP, because ultimately that's what you have to do. Remember that when choosing your organizational pattern, it's important that you follow the personal statement prompts that you were given in the application guidelines in order to highlight those aspects that the selection committee at each of the sites value. So organizing your thoughts for readability is going to strengthen your statement just by the virtue of connecting your past, present, future. And in whatever order you do that, they have to be interconnected in some sort of way. Finally, there's the aspect of revising and polishing your statement. So after you write your initial draft, make sure to set up an appointment with like a writing tutor on your campus, a mentor, some sort of supportive professor to discuss the contents and organization of your draft. Other helpful people that you could ask to get your feedback are like your career counselor or faculty advisor. So revise your draft and polish it. Polish that personal statement in terms of structure, the style, the syntax, and the grammar. And once you've revised your statement, be sure to have your reviewer take a second look. A really good question to ask them and to keep in mind as they're reviewing your personal statement is this. Tell the people that are reviewing your personal statement, if you never met me before, would you know me better after reading my personal statement? Does this give you a sense of who I really am? I'm going to say that again. If you never met me before, would you know me better after reading my personal statement? Does my personal statement give you a sense of who I really am? Have people think about that question and keep that question in mind as they review your personal statement, because that's what you're trying to achieve with these selection committees at all of these SHPEP sites. You know, these are people that have never met you. They're just going by words on pages and on their screens, right? They're trying to get a sense of who you really are, who you are, and why you would be a really good candidate for SHPEP. So the final draft and submitting your essay in the essay section of the SHP application is that important step. So once you've done all of this, you know, once you've brainstormed, you know, once you've looked at the guidelines, once you've brainstormed, once you've planned, once you've gotten all of those ideas down, once you've connected, you know, past, present, future, all of those things that we've discussed. A winning personal statement is one where you're going to give the persons that are reading it an insight of who you are as a person, aside from all of your grades and your test scores. You know, this is your chance to charm and impress, period. You'll be able to charm and impress people if you're honest and if you're genuine about your statement. Write about what you hold near and dear to your heart, and not just what you think the readers are going to be expecting to hear from you. And also speak in your own voice. That shows who you are. You know, don't look for big synonyms or, you know, big fancy words just because you think it's going to make you sound smarter. Just be yourself. You're trying to give somebody a picture of who you are, right? Stories and examples are really powerful in this case, and they're powerful devices that are going to help people remember who you are. If you're passionate about animals, about volunteering, you know, what's more powerful than writing about the things that you love? You know, committees have to read through hundreds and hundreds of applications. Examples and anecdotes that you give and are able to portray yourself, those things are the ones that are going to help your essay stand out. So it's better to prove it than to say it, right? You have to show it, right? Finally, be sure that you're staying within the required word limit of 600 words. The maximum word limit is 600. So don't write 625, don't write 650, don't write 700 words. This is a surefire way to get you disqualified from some of the sites if you're not careful. So just make sure to stick with your 600 word limit if you can. And when you're ready, when everything's done, when everything's polished, when everybody's gotten, a second look, when you've gotten people to edit it for any typos or grammars, styles, syntax, any of those things, you can submit your essay in the essay section of your SHPEP application. So for now, let's open up for questions, Tony. We have about 15-ish minutes to do questions.
And thank you so much, Liliana. I really appreciate you taking the time and effort. And I feel like you really broke down like the personal statement for everyone. Great job with, the presentation. And, I do see a couple of questions trickling in. And we do have one question here. Can we provide statistics when writing our personal statement? And if so, what is the best way to do so?
Well, statistics, and I'm not sure why you would provide statistics in a personal statement if it's about you. Typically, I don't see a lot of statistics in personal essays. I mean, you certainly can if you want to prove that you're like one of 500 million people that have a particular healthcare condition. I mean, I could totally see that. But I don't see why there would be a need. This is your story. It's a story about you. You're trying to tell a story about you, not give like facts that came out of a book. So I hope that answers the question.
Sure, that definitely does. And, for students who have, I guess, built a good relationship, with someone that has really inspired them to pursue a career in the health professions, should they avoid talking about that specific person, or what's the right way to kind of bring that up?
The right way to bring that up is to, one, mention that person. And that is absolutely something that was one of the bullet points I gave in, well, it wasn't a bullet point. It was like one of these points I came up with. But if there was a person that inspired you to pursue a career in healthcare, you can certainly talk about them, because that's about what made you who you are today. So mention that person and who they were, but how that person inspired you, what did that person do that inspired you? Make sure to be able to tie, as I mentioned, past, present, and future. So if that person was like part of your past, make sure to make that connection to your past, but you shouldn't avoid talking about a specific person that inspired you. That's absolutely in line with what you should be doing, because if somebody inspired you to be who you are and something that you're going to become, absolutely mention that. That is perfect.
Now, you have a lot of experience going over personal statements, right? And as far as like at your specific institution and things like that, just given that, and I think you're more involved with medical school admissions as well, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And just based on like that aspect, what I've noticed, I guess even on my end, that I've noticed that students tend to write personal statements sometimes as work and activities. I guess I'm curious, more of a me question. How do we get students out of that habit, and what's the right way to kind of bring up something that they may have participated in, and highlighting that in their personal statement?
And that's where, students should approach someone that knows them well, right? Because sometimes, it might be a professor, it might be an advisor, it might be a teacher, it might be a peer, like an older classmate, that has maybe gone through the process. That is one thing that some people that enroll in SHPEP have done. They've approached people who have been through the program, and I'm sure there's ways to connect with your office, Tony, and try to link up to past participants from their particular institution to talk about that. But sometimes it's just talking to somebody about, what should I cover? Because you only have 600 words. What are you going to fit into 600 words? And it's hard to say. It's going to be different for every single person. But it's getting those experiences, but those experiences that stand out, that show growth, that show change, that's what you want to talk about, that shows progress within the person, not just like, oh, I participated in this. It's like, you don't want to talk about that. You want to talk about the how that transformed you. That's the important question there.
Perfect. Then are there any cliche or overdone topics that you would suggest avoiding? And just to add on a little extra, how would you suggest a student bring up COVID-19 in their personal statement?
So that's unique. I haven't seen any of those yet, actually. But for COVID-19, it's really individual. But COVID-19, there's a lot of different things that have come out about COVID-19. Many challenges, much adversity has come from students. I recently had an advising session with the students, and I cannot say where they're from. But she talked about, certain things that had happened in her family. But we talked about how to reframe that situation, those challenges that her family faced because of COVID-19, and talk about that in a sense of how, like, she's working to overcome all of these things. Like, these things are still not resolved and these issues are not resolved. But just telling a story about how you're working on overcoming this, that's what committees want to see. They want to see how you're able to get past this situation and not let something just completely squash you, right? I mean, that's what you're trying to talk about. But COVID situations, there's lots of different issues, whether it's healthcare related, job related, home related. There's so many different situations out there, but only one student from an institution had reached out to us about that particular issue, but that's how we advised her to go ahead and talk about how she's working on overcoming some of these things that COVID-19 has put in front of her.
Thank you for sharing that. And as far as the personal statement, should students start out by introducing themselves?
It's, like I said, you can start any way you want. You can start with a present, say who you are, but why you are who you are, right? It's not like, hi, my name is Lily Bronner. It's like, no, that's not your personal statement. It's like, remember those opening statements that I gave. What's unique about you? Is it going to be maybe a quote? You have to try to grab somebody's attention, right? You can certainly introduce yourself, but what's unique about you that you're going to say that's going to draw the reader in? That's a cliche right there. One of the cliche things. Hi, I'm Lily Bronner, and I attend the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Da 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 da. It's like, okay, I can get that from your application. I know who you are from your application. Tell me more about you. Draw me in. Tell me, what's that story that you're going to start with? And this is where it's like, you might have to reach out to like an English professor or creative writing professor, somebody like that, sit with them. There's some universities that have writing tutors. Like we have ours in our library. So we have writing tutors that can help us, come up with these ideas on how to best present, a personal statement. There's career centers at different campuses. And that's a great place to go as well. If you have like a career center at your college campus, perfect place to go and get pointers on how to do that intro about yourself. But yeah, like, don't tell me, I'm John Smith, I am from XYZ University. It's like, we know that from your application. What else?
Perfect. And, I see a lot of students asking questions about a minimum word count for SHPEP as far as like, being accepted and things like that, or what should like the minimum they do. I would say, just given everyone's story is different, it's really going to depend, and I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts on that as well, if you think that I'm missing something or anything like that.
600 words is a really good number. You know, I hate to say like much less than that, a lot less than that, like half of that is like, you're not even giving anybody a picture of who you are. I mean, that's a half a page. Think about that. 600 words is one page. That's what 600 words is. And that's not a lot. In one page, you have to say, you know, who you are, you know, what impacted you from your past and who you want to be, what you want to get out of this experience. So, I mean, 600 words is really a decent gauge. I think if you go under 300, I mean, you're missing something. You've missed something. So I would say, I mean, aim, if you're a person of very few words, and I know a lot of people are of very few words, I mean, try to aim between like 500 and 600 if you have to, if you just have a really hard time with words. But this is why you have to take the time in that brainstorming and planning phase to really talk through, you know, what experiences you want to talk about. Meet with a friend, meet with an advisor, meet with a counselor, meet with somebody, and talk about these things. You'll be surprised at how much you'll be able to say once you start getting things down on paper. It's much easier to cut than to not say something, right? You know, than to send your application in and not having said something. So it's much easier to cut down your application.
Perfect. And so I just received the question right now. What are the most memorable topics you've read as far as personal statements, and what have made those especially good?
Memorable topics, I mean, they range, they range a lot. I must disclose that I am not in a selection committee for SHPEP. I do work for our College of Medicine, so it's a little different in that situation. But the most memorable essays that have always stuck with me, I mean, to this day, even though I've read them like years ago or last week, a lot of the memorable ones are the ones where students are really able to describe how they overcame a major problem, whether it was a learning disability, a challenge, a loss of somebody, something dramatic that happened in their lives. And even those that are not dramatic in any sense, that don't have a sense of loss and overcoming, those students who were able to say, you know, this is how I think that, you know, this school or this experience are going to help me. And I need, you know, these are the areas where I absolutely need to improve. And I believe that this experience will allow me to blah, 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 blah. I mean, those have always stuck with me as well, because it tells me that this person really wants to persist, really wants to try hard, really wants to do anything that's best to get them ahead. So a lot of those essays, they vary, but yeah, those are the ones that stick with me. Either you've overcome something, whatever it might be, or that you are able to succinctly express how much this experience will mean for you and what impact it will have on you moving forward.
Perfect. And could you share some parting words for us, Liliana, as far as like any last second thoughts, feedback, advice, anything that you could give us?
Yeah, last minute thoughts, stick to your word count. But always, 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 when you're writing a personal statement, I mean, it's your way to charm. You know, these people are trying to get an image of who you are by just reading your words. So it's really important to use those words, you know, wisely, use them well. Really take the time to think about what you're going to say. These personal statements are not just going to just be for SHPEP. These are statements that can go with you to the next step. When you go to health profession school and you're finally applying for that health profession schools, these are personal statements. These are things that you can add to later. So this is not like a one and done, you throw it away. These are things that you can continuously develop, going in your next step forward to graduate school, to health profession school, to wherever you end up going. These personal statements are about you and who you are. So these are your stories and your words, and they're all about you, and they should stay with you. So those are my parting words.
Thank you so much, Liliana. And really, I hope that each of our applicants, learned a lot from you, which I know I have personally, as far as constructing a personal statement, things to avoid, what pitfalls to avoid, and, just a live look from someone who is in medical school admissions. I think that's amazing. That being said, I would like to emphasize that this webinar is going to be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel within a week of the live viewing, and we're good to go. Have a good evening, everyone.